Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Let's start.
सहनाववतु सहनो भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। श्री गीता ध्यानम्। ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणम् मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भगवद्वेषिणी। नमोऽस्तु ते व्यासविशालबुद्धे पुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्रा येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयप्रदीपः प्रपन्नपारिजाताय पुत्रवैत्रेकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दुग्धात् गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्सस्तुतिर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत्। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्। भीष्मद्रोणतटा जयद्रथजला गान्धारनीलोत्पला शल्यग्राहवती कृपेण वहनी कर्णेन वेलाकुला अश्वत्थामविकर्णघोरमकरा दुर्योधनावर्तिनी सोतीर्णा खलु पाण्डवैरननदी कैवर्तककेशवः पाराशर्यवचः सरोजममलं गीतार्थगन्तोत्कटम् नानाख्यानककेसरं हरिकथा सम्बोधनाबोधितम्। लोके सज्जन षट्परैरहरः पेटीयमानं मुधा भूयात् भारत पंकजं कलिमल प्रध्वंसिन श्रेयसे। मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयति गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम्। यं ब्रह्मा वरुणीन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुवन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदे गायन्ति यं सामगाः। ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनो यस्यान्तं न विदुःसुरासुरगणा देवाय तस्मै नमः। देवाय तस्मै नमः। देवाय तस्मै नमः।
Hari Om. So on the video you will hear Hari Oms, lot of Hari Oms from here. So I'm going to switch the camera. Look at this. I'm so happy. It's my privilege, and I'm so happy, pleasure that my classmates are here with me. Okay, I told you last time that I'm going to a school reunion, and they're all here. And as in class, the first benches, the first benches are empty. Yeah, 2 or 3 of them are there. So yeah, so it's like real special satsang, because so many of you are here. So thank you all. Hari Om. So today we are starting chapter 16, Daivaasura Sampad Vibhaaga Yoga. And obviously, like I mentioned in my WhatsApp, please excuse me for a long monologue today. Sometimes, 3 or 4 times during our Bhagavad Gita that has happened, and today is one of those. Because in this introduction, we will set the background. We will also set the high-level context, because we are getting into a very important chapter, And so it requires that we set the background, set a high-level context, and also, give a brief introduction of what we have done in the last couple of satsangs, in the last chapter. So the background and the context will include what we have done till now overall, and then in the last chapter too, a little bit more detailed summary of what we did in the last chapter. And then today, I think we will have time only for verse 1. We will chant the first 3 verses, and we will just go through verse 1. So with that, let's begin. Hari Om. See, we have seen earlier also that most of our issues, problems in life come through deep, extreme identification with our body, our mind, and our intellect. This body, mind, intellect paradigm, which is what helps us relate to the outside world. And these are the faculties that help us interact with the material world, or samsara, as we have seen. And this identification with the body, mind, and intellect leads to us being thrown about in this tumultuous ocean of samsara. And we saw that earlier, like a boat that is being tossed about in an ocean. And this leads to an identity crisis, just like we saw Arjuna had that identity crisis when the Bhagavad Gita, just before the Bhagavad Gita had started. So Bhagavan Sri Krishna had said that I lift them out of the ocean of samsara. Tesham aham samuddhartat mrityu samsara sagarat. Tesham, them, who? For those people whose minds are set on me. And he had mentioned this in chapter 12. And he personally lifts them out of this ocean, this tumultuous ocean of samsara. But that said, though he normally quotes that, one of my favorite verses in Bhagavad Gita that I try to abide by, but I find it very difficult. Tasmad sarveshu kaleshu ma manusmara yodhyacha mayarpita manobuddhihi ma me vaishyasya samshayam. So Bhagavan says, therefore, at every moment of your life, every single living moment, tasmad sarveshu kaleshu ma manusmara, think about me, keep me in your mind, and go about doing your duties. Yudhyacha implies for Arjuna to fight, but for all of us to do our duties, to live our lives, to do what we have to do, and to fight our various battles. And how difficult is that? We also spoke about it in one of our text exchanges, right? That, remembering God every moment of your life is even more difficult than sannyasis and sadhus who, leave everything and go and abide and live in the Himalayas. Living in the Himalayas, the body will adjust, if not in 1 month, in 3 months, if not in 3 months, in 6 months. But every moment of your life, whatever you are doing, having Bhagavan's name in your mind and thinking of him and continuing to do what you are doing, that is indeed a task. And that is what we all have to try, as much as possible. Even if we can do it 25, 30, 40, 50% of the time, I think we have come a long, long way. And Bhagavan says that for those people, sarveshu kaleshu mamanasmara yudhyacha mayarpita manobuddhi, when with their minds and intellect, manobuddhi, minds and intellect, arpita, devoted to me, dedicated to me, set on me, And when that happens, ma me vaishyasya samshayam, they definitely, certainly, with certainty, they reach me. They reach me means they are freed from the ocean of samsara. So how does one go about setting the mind on Bhagavan? We saw how difficult it is, right? I just talked about it, mentioned it. One of the solutions is the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, and it's probably an ideal solution, very suited to our very busy way of life and way of living. And in the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, we saw there are 3 sections. Section 1, where in chapter 1 to 6, Bhagavan imparted the knowledge of the self. And along with that, the jiva, the self. And along with that, he taught us Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. And how through Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga, the knowledge of the self can be made firm, nishchala, can be solidified. And then in the second section of the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7 to 12, Bhagavan taught us the knowledge of, or gave us the knowledge of the ultimate reality of Ishvara. And how through Bhakti Yoga, the knowledge of the ultimate reality, the knowledge of Ishvara, can be transformed into single-pointed devotion, Ananya Bhakti, through Bhakti Yoga. And in section 3, that is chapter 13 to 18, Bhagavan explains how this person who has gone through, who has abided by these teachings of what we just mentioned, the first 2 sections, how that person who is on this path of spiritual progress and abides, how that person is saved, quote unquote, is lifted out from this ocean of samsara. So essentially, Bhagavan started this process of lifting, quote unquote, like he says, the devotee out of this ocean of samsara by giving us the knowledge of what the samsara is, what is the kshetra, the field of play, the field of samsaric play, and what is the kshetragya, the knower of this field of play. And what is the differentiation? How do you differentiate between the two? And that was Kshetra Kshetragya Vibhaaga Yoga, the yoga of differentiation of the known and the knower. In chapter 14, Gunatraya Vibhaaga Yoga. In Gunatraya Vibhaaga Yoga, Bhagavan covered 3 topics. Topic 1 was how this association, Bhagavan used the word samyogat, the samyogat of the Kshetra and the Kshetragya. How this association between the field and the knower of the field, how that these two happens, how it takes place under the control of Ishvara, empowered by Bhagavan, empowered by him. Ishvara Adhina, how that happens. Topic 2 was all about gunas, right? And the gunas are born from Prakriti, and how the Purusha seated in the Prakriti experiences the play of the gunas. So the second topic was entirely about what the gunas are, what are the associations with them, and what happens due to the association, which is the resultant bondage. And then topic 3 was how can we get freedom from this bondage of association with the gunas. How do you get moksha? Bhagavan had used the term Bhuta Prakriti Moksham Cha. So Bhuta Prakriti Moksham Cha, freedom from the manifested Prakriti. And the manifested Prakriti expresses itself through gunas. We saw all of that. And any freedom or the freedom from such expressions which comes through the gunas, these expressions that get manifested through the mind intellect is moksha. When you get free from that association, it is termed as moksha. You cannot avoid gunas. That is not possible. It is impossible not to experience the gunas because they are born out of Prakriti. But the aspect of disassociating oneself with the gunas is moksha. And then in chapter 15, Purushottama Yoga, which is in fact in itself called as a Shastra, that Purushottama Yoga, Bhagavan first describes the self as, number 1, he says it is self-illuminating and self-revealing. Swaprakashaha swa-aparokshatvam. And then he says this is the state of non-return. That is, yadgatva na nivartante. Once having gone there, there is no coming back. The state of non-return. And he describes the self as a part of his own self, as Bhagavan's own self. Mamai Vamshaha Sanatanaha. Ever magnificent, the all-illuminating light of consciousness. Tattejo Vidhi Mamakam. The all-sustaining life energy. Dharayam Yaham Ojasa. The Ojasa, the energy. The subjective warmth of life in all living organization. That warmth that is within us. Aham Vaishvanaro Bhutva. And the one seated in everyone's hearts. Sarvasya Chaham Hridi Sannivishtaha. And Bhagavan, thus he explains the concept of Purushottama and says that one who knows me as Purushottamam. We also talked about, we know Bhagavan in so many ways. Arjuna himself addresses Bhagavan in so many different ways, and we actually had a satsang on Bhagavan Nama, on his various Nama and what their meanings are. Beautiful it is, And so many ways, infinite ways we can think of God as, so many forms, right? And he says, one who knows me as this Purushottama, Mameva Janati. And what do you mean by as this Purushottama? Bhagavan lists out 5 aspects. The first aspect is as distinct, one that Purushottama who is distinct from the other 2 Purushas. The other 2 Purushas are the Kshara Purusha and the Akshara Purusha, the Kshetra and the Kshetragya. One that is perishable and one that is imperishable. So something that is distinct from both of these. Then he said, one who sees me as the Supreme Self, as the Supreme Purusha, Purushottama, and as the indestructible Lord, Avyayam, and one who pervades the entire 3 worlds, and one who sustains the 3 worlds, pervades or enters the 3 worlds, and sustains or supports the 3 worlds. And he said, Saha, such a person, is Sarvavida. Sarvavida means is all-knowing, knows it all. Because why? One who knows the Purushottama will know the Kshara Purusha and the Akshara Purusha. And one who knows Kshara Purusha, Akshara Purusha, Purushottama knows everything. That is all there is to it, everything. And knowing me as such, he says, Bhajanti Mam Sarva Bhavena, worships me with all his being. So here in this, the 3rd section, what we have done till now, Bhagavan has, what has he done? He has taught Arjuna, and through Arjuna, he has taught all of us, the differentiation between the Kshetra and the Kshetragya. There is the field of play and the knower of the field of play. The differentiation between the 3 gunas and how to transcend the 3 gunas. And then the aspect of the Purushottama, the Supreme Purusha. Now the logical development, see, Bhagavad Gita is a beautiful logical text. That's one of the magnificent aspects of the Bhagavad Gita. That supreme logic of thought flow, that continues now. That beauty of thought flow that is so apparent when you read it. And that continues now. The knower of the field is that one supreme. Okay, but the field itself is unbelievable in terms of its extent, in terms of its magnitude, in terms of its various kinds of manifestations. We saw Bhagavan himself had talked about it, right? The different types of manifestations and the variations within the same types of manifestations. It's infinite, absolutely infinite. The Kshetra itself, the Prakriti itself is infinite in its existence. And the Purusha is only one. So the field, however, differs in terms of the level of discipline of the various elements of creation. The level of mastery over the gunas is what differentiates the field. We all see that, right? We all see, we all experience, and we all seem to know that the human being, the human manifestation is probably the most accomplished, most advanced. Why? Because the intellect and the mind are much better formed than any other creature that are existing in the planet. And because of this, there is this advancement in human beings where the human being is able to, fashion the world as per the human's requirement. And not only that, is able to subjugate other creatures to help them make the human being more and more comfortable and more successful. So the field itself is innumerable in its existence, innumerable in its manifestation. And the difference in the field is essentially based on the level of discipline and the level of advancement, the level of maturity of the mind and intellect of one species over the other. And this then impacts the physical, the intellectual, the mental behavior that then determines spiritual progress. See, we talked about the body, the mind, and the intellect. The body, mind, and intellect are the paradigms that help us interact with the rest of the world. And the rest of the world, each element of the rest of the world has a body, mind, and intellect. And then there is the self, there is the soul, right? So just like an electricity bulb, if you take the bulb out of there and put it on the table here, that bulb is an inert object that is lying there. It has three elements. It has a glass covering, casing, it has the tungsten wire, and it has the gas in between. But it is lying there inert. And then you harness this thing called electricity, and you push that electricity through this bulb, and the bulb glows. Light manifests. Similarly, the body and the mind and the intellect lies on the ground completely inert. It can't do anything. And then you have the soul that permeates into the body, mind, and intellect, and life manifests. So that's the beauty of how this, the spirit and the body, mind, and intellect come together. And what are this discipline that helps this body, mind, and intellect perform better, exist better, grow better, enhance spiritually better in this samsara, thereby taking it progressively towards that, freedom from the samsara. What does that happen? That requires certain qualities. And what are these qualities that a seeker? So this is applicable to people who are seekers. Seekers can be people who are seekers in the samsaric world, where we have goals to achieve in the corporate world, in our domestic world, and so on and so forth, or in the spiritual world. So seekers who are aspiring for spiritual progress, what are the qualities that they should have, and what are the qualities that they should avoid? That is what the subject of chapter 16 is. What are the qualities that we as seekers should espouse, and what are the qualities that we as seekers should discard? What we need to cherish and what we need to eschew. Now, just to give one more background, in the beginning of chapter 15, Bhagavan had said, in the second verse itself, Adashchodvam prasritastasya shakhaha guna pravriddha vishaya pravalaha adascha mulanyanu santatani karmanubandhini manushya loke. So Bhagavan had said that the branches of the samsara vriksha, he had given a beautiful analogy of the tree of life, the samsara vriksha. And those are nourished by the gunas. The sense objects are the buds of those trees that help interact with the environment. And they prompt actions and also bind through actions in this human world, in manushya loke, in the world of human beings. He had used this word karmanubandhini, karma anubandhini. Karma is action. Anubandha is immediate prompting. Sometimes we get immediate prompting, right? Something that urges us, that urge, inner urge that comes. Bhagavan had also said in chapter 3, you have to act. There is, your nature will propel you into action. That propellant force, that is anubandha, that prompts us to act. And then it binds us to that action, to that karma. That is karmanubandhini. In the human embodiment, the person, a human being, is guided by vasanas. Vasanas are inherent tendencies. We all come with our own inherent tendencies. They are there. We cannot do it. For example, I have had a short temper for a longest period of my life. That is an inherent tendency. It happens. It just comes. It manifests. And it's there. It is there for everyone to experience and me to experience also. These inherent tendencies prompt action through likes and dislikes. What is happening in the world is to my liking. Okay, it's conducive. What is happening in the world is not to my liking. It is not conducive. And the human embodiment is the only one in which this creature, this part of creation, this part of the kshetra can make spiritual progress. Through actions, a human being takes steps to evolve and to devolve. That is what I had mentioned in my introductory text also. And how does this happen? Because of our mind and intellect, the human being has the ability to have what is called purushartha. Purusha, human being, artha, in this context, goals, human goals. So this human goal, purushartha or human goal, lead to human effort, endeavor, manushya prayatna or purusha prayatna. See, actions can happen anytime. We also take actions in our dreams. Okay, in a dream, I'll win a lottery. I'll put that lottery check in my bank account. But when I actually wake up, I see that there is no money in my bank. A child in the womb of the mother, it kicks the mother. She kicks the mother. Like my daughter-in-law keeps saying that I can hear the daughter is kicking her, and that is also a waking up action. It's not an action in dream. It's a action which is kind of, real. The dream actions are imaginary. And this is a real action. But whether they are imaginary or real, these actions do not have a goal. But actions that are taken with purushartha, with a goal behind that action, they necessarily have a conscious choice. Number one, the responsibility is assumed for that action. Within, I'm not talking about assuming responsibility in a group. You take action with conscious choice. You assume responsibility for your action because why? You have that goal. You put in effort. Self-effort is there. That is also an element of taking that action. And because of all this, there is conscious action. It is not unconscious action. Karma is there and karma phala is there. Punya is there and papa is there. And punya and papa is nothing but, in this context, the peace that comes from our own action and the disturbance in our mind that comes from our own action. That is punya and papa. And almost all of this is a feature of the human embodiment. I can take my dog to a dog show. The dog will stand in the podium and win first prize. It will wag its tail and it bark. But who is the one who is so thrilled and happy? I came first. Does the dog think that I came first? No. It's the human being who thinks I came first. So this aspect of the human embodiment having this ability to set goals, pursue goals, take conscious action, and succeed or fail is an element of the human embodiment. Conscious goals, conscious choice, conscious actions. And through these goals, conscious choice and conscious actions, we either evolve or we devolve. One of these two happen. Now, in any embodiment, see, naturally follows to one of the things that we have done. We have spoken about few times, 4 or 5 times, but it's important to review it right now. Every embodiment does not start with a clean slate. We have seen that. We have seen some kids are, what is it called? Prodigies. Some people are born with handicap. So there is no clean slate. Every embodiment brings with it some past, some karma from the past. So we need to look at what karma is, because that's very crucial for this human being self-effort aspect, right? So to recap what karma is, and I'll explain it in my favorite way that I always do, right? See, whenever actions, whatever actions that we have done till now, taken till now, whatever has happened, including the previous janma, the actions that we are taking today, the actions that we will take in the future, including in the future janmas, all of these together comprise our entire karmic portfolio, our karma. It's our total karma portfolio. And when we take action, there is necessarily a fruit to action. That is our phala. That is the result, karma phala. Now, all this collection of accumulated karma is called sanchita karma. This is the total karma portfolio of us, that sanchita karma. It is like the financial, our total financial portfolio. Imagine that, everything, whatever we have, that is our total portfolio. Similarly, So can you just keep the question and we'll take that in the end? Yes, that's right. That's what I said, including future births. So quick answer to your question, including future births. My past actions, including previous birth, my current actions, and the future action, including future births, all together is my total karma portfolio. That is Sanchita karma. Out of that Sanchita karma, imagine that financial portfolio and something matures. And that what matures you have to use. Similarly, when we come into this body, mind, and intellect, when we take this being, this human embodiment, or whichever embodiment there is, we come in with the matured part of that Sanchita karma. That matured part of that Sanchita karma is called the Prarabdha karma. It cannot be avoided. It cannot be changed. It has to be, wo bolte hain, Prarabdha ko bhugatna padta hai. You have to experience it. So Prarabdha karma has to be bhugatod. You have to experience it. That part is it can only get exhausted by experience. Just like that part of that financial portfolio that you have to spend, right? You have to, it's matured and you have to use it. Agami karma are our current works, whatever are happening now, the current accumulation. If I'm earning 100 rupees today, that goes into my financial portfolio. That is Agami. Similarly, whatever karma is I'm earning today, that goes into through my Agami karma, it goes into my portfolio. Now, people often wonder whether Prarabdha is bigger or Purushartha is bigger. We talked about Purushartha also. What is bigger? What is higher? What is stronger? See, for example, Duryodhana says in Mahabharata, he says, Kenapi devena prayuttaha. You know what he says? He says, someone is prompting me. What? No, I'm not doing this. I'm not responsible. There's some force. This is not me. So Prarabdha is my Prarabdha. What can I do? You know, so what is stronger? Is Purushartha stronger or is Prarabdha stronger? Paul Brunton, a New Age guru, he has said, and I quote, there is an inescapable balance between our principal thoughts and deeds and our principal life experiences, unquote. So when a person's thoughts and deeds are influenced only by the past experiences, then the person is living in the past. The life itself is in the past. But when the person realizes that while today I may be a product of my past, my future is a product or is a continuity of my past and my current actions. Both together determine my future. When you realize that, you know, when you have the past and the Agami together determining the future, that person is architect of one's future. So the law of destiny, we like to call it the law of destiny, that states that the being's current status is one's Prarabdha. And the law of karma states that the person is a product of the past actions and present self-effort. Past action into self-effort is karma. And Bhagavan says that this is the privilege of the human beings to be able to think on these lines and to be able to influence that karma, that entire portfolio of Sanchita karma through the current actions, through Agami. That is the power of Agami. And that power of Agami makes Purushartha much, much more, ever stronger than Prarabdha. So all of us are born with a permutation combination of all these natures, all the gunas. All of us are born with permutation combinations of the various vasanas that we have. But putting self-effort to modify this nature of ours through our Agami karma, that then gets added to the Sanchita karma. That then influences the Prarabdha karma of the next life. Because this Prarabdha karma, we are already coming, right? It's there, it's given. Not only that, it also influences the future Agami karma of this life. So that is the capability that the human beings have, which other creatures do not have. It's like a river, you know, the river flows with awesome force in one particular direction. And then imagine there's a landslide and a humongous rock falls on that river, and that river has to change, is forced to change its course. That is Prarabdha. The river itself is Prakriti, but Prarabdha came and changed the Prakriti of the. So if you take Corona, Corona is like a humongous rock that fell on this world, right? And people, we all are working in our world, we are all a part of businesses, part of corporate life. Some businesses collapsed because of Corona. Some businesses actually flourished because of Corona. Prarabdha. For both of them, by the way. Prarabdha can be good, Prarabdha can be bad. For both of them. Right? It just one Prarabdha comes, gives Sukha, or Prarabdha gives Dukha. And we experience it. There is no other choice. But that said, the bridge falls, sorry, the what is it called? The stone falls, the rock falls, and the river changes its course. But human beings also build banks, they build bridges, they build dams on the river. The river itself cannot do that, but human beings can. That's the power of the human being. And that is Purusha Prayatna. That is that human effort. And doing that, we harness nature for our own benefit. This Prakriti, which is magnificent, which is unbelievably powerful, we harness it. Imagine how powerful human beings are. This human being, Elon Musk, with Purusha, amazing guy, great scientist. I don't know whether everything that he does is good for planet Earth or not, but let us assume it is. He has this Purushartha. His Purushartha is, or his goal is to make the red planet Mars habitable. And you know what he's doing? He has this beautiful agenda, which has come from his Purushartha, to have nuclear explosions on the North Pole and the South Pole of Mars. And these nuclear explosions will be there every second. You know, it will be exploding. North Pole, South Pole, explosion. Imagine nuclear explosion. Okay, and when this nuclear explosions are going to happen in the North Pole and South Pole every second, it is going to result in what he calls a pulsing sun. You know, pulsing sun. You know, it's going to one pulsing sun in the North Pole and one pulsing sun in the South Pole. These two pulsing solar suns, they are going to create warmth for that planet. And they are going to capture that any carbon dioxide which is frozen, they are going to convert that into gas. Gaseous carbon dioxide captures heat. And that is going to then warm up the planet, subsequently leading to it being friendly for human inhabitation. Just look at this. Huh? It's mind-boggling. That is the power. I mean, what are we trying? What are we doing? And what have we done till now? It's unbelievably amazing. So this is the power, this Manushya Loke. It's there in this human embodiment, nowhere else. This is the kind of power. And that is the power that helps us work with nature, against nature. And if a human being can work with this mighty nature, with the solar system, with the planet Earth, can't we work with our own nature? Right? That is what it is. So with this general kind of a background or introduction, let's come to chapter 16. So the human nature that can be worked upon or against is essentially of two types, the good and the bad. Now, it's difficult to say good and the bad in today's environment, especially if I go to America and I say good and the bad, my daughter will say, shoot, you can't talk. I mean, what is good, what is bad? From my perspective, something is good. From her perspective, something else is good. My perspective, something is bad. From her perspective, something is bad. The good and the bad is an extremely debatable point. So maybe we can call it holy and unholy, right? So holy because people will say, okay, fine, I'm not holy. You know, I'll figure it out. Maybe I'll be holy after I'm 70 years old. But it's not bad to be termed as unholy, you know, whereas it's bad to be termed as bad. So, you know, a safe thing could be holy and unholy. But Bhagavan Sri Krishna does not mince his words. He doesn't, you know, he is one of the firmest guys at every given time. He uses the term Daivi and Asuri for describing the twofold overarching natures, the divine, Daivi or divine, and the Asuri or decadent. Nature that takes people towards spiritual progress is Daivi. Nature that retards spiritual progress is Asuri. Decadent nature has also two sub-classifications, two sub-natures. One that is overly occupied with likes. So it is an Asuri nature, but it is fulfilling myself. You know, I have this immense thing of, you know, I want to rule the, you know, entire universe. And for example, if Elon Musk was doing this for himself, like Ravana, you know, everything is mine, then it is Asuri nature. If he's doing it for the well-being of entire creation, then it is Daivi nature. So fulfilling oneself is one aspect of Asuri nature. Overly occupied with my own likes and dislikes. The other aspect of Asuri nature is Dvesha. The first one is Bhoga, the other is Dvesha, which is hatred, which is bringing down others. I will rise by, spoiling somebody. Putin, for example, they say, I don't know who is responsible, United States or Putin or whoever, but whoever is responsible, someone has to be brought down. The citizens of Ukraine are suffering and they have to be brought down for my welfare. That is Asuri nature. That is the second part of Asuri nature that comes through Dvesha. Gurudev Swami Chinmayananda, in this context, he said, and I quote, the human being is that rare creature that finds joy in suppressing other creatures, including other human beings, unquote. So these are the two sub-classifications. But in this chapter, Bhagavan combines the two into one Asuri. Both are combined. And Bhagavan had said, to set a context, Bhagavan had said in chapter 9, Bhagavan had said, Mugha sha mugha karmanah mugha jnana vichetasah rakshasi masurim chaiva prakritim mohinim shrita mahatmanastu mam partha daivim prakritim ashritaha bhajantyananya manasah jnatva bhutadim avyayam. So what Bhagavan had introduced her to us to these concepts at that time of vain hopes, of useless actions, of worthless knowledge, senseless. Those are the people who are surely possessed with this delusive nature called the Rakshasi nature and Asuri nature. And then he said, contrast that, but, two is but. To contrast the former, he says the Mahatmas, the great souls, O Partha, taking refuge in the divine within them. There is also Asuri within them, by the way. But taking refuge to the divine within them, worship me with a mind devoted to nothing else, knowing me as the imperishable source of everything, of all the, knowing me, the Kshetragya, as the imperishable source of all the Kshetra. So all human beings have a permutation and combination of all these natures. Encouraging one of those is through self-effort, because we need self-effort to either be like a Putin or be like a Musk or be like a Krishna. You need that self-effort, encouraging one element of the nature. And Bhagavan had said in the last chapter that one who has crystal clear comprehension of the self within one's core, because each of our cores has that divinity within us. One who has a crystal clear combination of that divinity within and constantly abides in it is the true yogi. Not the one who is just striving for the sake of striving. He had used the term yatanta yoginaha and compared it with yatanta akritatmanaha or achetasaha. Manaha, when you say atmanaha, the manaha or the mind is an instrument to getting to know the self, instrument to getting to know the divinity that's within us. Akritatmanaha is the mind whose self-effort is directed towards promoting Asuri nature. Achetasaha doesn't mean there is no intellect, no chetasa, no intelligence. Achetasaha means that mind which is not under the control of the self. So the mind needs to be under the control of the self. See, for example, if I have to play tennis, my mind has to be under the control of that game of tennis. If I have to, at least to an extent, but if I have to win Wimbledon, then my mind has to be very much under the control of tennis. I have to sleep, they say eat, sleep, drink, think tennis all the time, right? So the mind is under the control of that game. Similarly, for a person who has the Purushartha of following scriptural progress, the self has to control and veer it towards Daivi Sampad rather than an uncontrolled mind which goes towards Asuri Sampad. Now, Bhagavan is now going to list out in this chapter all the values, the virtues that belong to Daivi Sampad and the virtues that belong to Asuri Sampad, and teach us how to distinguish between the two. He has done this earlier also, by the way. He started in chapter 2 itself, which is like an introduction. Sthita Pragya Lakshana. Sthita Pragya Lakshana, when Arjuna asked, Sthita Pragyascha ka bhasha. And Bhagavan described the qualities of this person who is established in equanimity, one who does not sway along with the extremities that one experiences. Then in chapter 12, he listed out the Bhakta Lakshana, qualities that are required for Ananya Bhakti, single-pointed devotion. In chapter 13, he listed out Jnanam. Jnanam, as he described Jnanam, were a list of qualities that he gives the name Jnanam. And then in chapter 14, he described what is Gunatita Lakshana, the qualities that describe the one who has transcended the three gunas, crossed over. Gunatita means crossing over the gunas. And in the last chapter, chapter 15, is just not a term that you will find, I'm just using it. Tatpadam parimargitavyam lakshana. So qualities that are required for pursuing that goal of non-return, pursuing that goal of not freedom from samsara, not delete not, pursuing that goal of freedom from samsara. We should actually do an exercise, like we did an exercise of listing out all Bhagwan's names, Bhagwan Nama, Shri Bhagwan Nama. We should do an exercise of listing out qualities that Bhagwan is teaching us to follow. Right? We should do all of that. Now he devotes an entire chapter to virtues that are to be fostered by us, that are to be practiced by us, and negativities that are to be discarded by us. In the first three verses, Bhagwan describes the Daivi Sampad. Sampad is a possession. Sampad is also wealth, right? Sampad is what we possess, what it belongs to me, what I can exercise control over. It's my control whether I can withdraw money from the bank or not. I have the PIN code. I get the OTP, right? So it's under my control. So Sampad is what I can exercise my control over. So in this context, Sampad is my nature, because I can exercise control over my own nature. If I can exercise control over Bhagwan's created nature, the entire universe, then I can exercise control over my own nature. So that's Sampad. And most of these values that Bhagwan is going to teach can be considered at two levels. One is the level of the sadhaka or the practitioner, the learner, like all of us. We are all sadhakas. So at our level, what do these various qualities mean? How does a spiritual seeker practice through these qualities? And then the level of a siddha as a phala. So how seekers like us can look at people who are accomplished, the siddhas, and see, hey, so look at him, he's embodiment of that quality. So we can see him practicing or her practicing that quality. And when she practices that quality, we witness it, something to learn from. It is said, siddhasya lakshanani sadhakasya sadhanani. So the lakshana of the siddha is the sadhana of the sadhana, so that we can learn. So what the learned person espouses, visibly demonstrates. So we can see the first verse at these two levels. So we will now go into chapter 16.
Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha.
Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha.
Atha Shodashodhyayaha.
Atha Shodashodhyayaha.
Daivaasura Sampad Vibhaaga Yogaha.
Daivaasura Sampad Vibhaaga Yogaha.
Shri Bhagavanuvacha.
Shri Bhagavanuvacha.
Abhayam Sattva Samshuddhihi.
Abhayam Sattva Samshuddhihi.
Jnana Yoga Vyavastitihi.
Jnana Yoga Vyavastitihi.
Dhanam Damascha Yajnascha.
Dhanam Damascha Yajnascha.
Svadhyayastapa Arjavam.
Svadhyayastapa Arjavam.
Ahimsa Satyam Akrodaha.
Ahimsa Satyam Akrodaha.
Tyaga Shantirapaishunam.
Tyaga Shantirapaishunam.
Daya Bhuteshvalo Luptvam.
Daya Bhuteshvalo Luptvam.
Mardhavam Krira Chapalam.
Mardhavam Pira Chapalam.
Tejas Shamadriti Shaucham.
Tejas Shamadritis Shaucham.
Adroho Nati Manita.
Adroho Nati Manita.
Bhavanti Sampadam Devim.
Bhavanti Sampadam Daivim.
अभिजातस्य भारत
Abhijatasya Bharata.
श्रीभगवानुवाच अभयं सत्त्वसंशुद्धिः ज्ञानयोगव्यवस्थितः दानं दमश्च यज्ञश्च स्वाध्यायस्तप आर्जवम् अहिंसा सत्यमक्रोधः त्यागः शान्तिरपैशुनम् दया भूतेष्वलो लुप्त्वम् माधवम् क्षीरचापलम् तेजः क्षमा धृतिः शौचम् अद्रोहो नातिमानिता भवन्ति सम्पदम् दैवीम् अभिजातस्य भारत.
So anyway, we are going to, so he is listing 25 qualities in these 3 verses, and we are going to go through each one of them. So I'm not going to do word by word translation. Okay, I'll just do a overall verse translation. So, but he says, Abhayam, Sattva, Samshuddhihi, Jnana Yoga Vyavasthitihi, Danam, Damascha, Yajñascha, Swadhyaya, Tapaha, Arjavam, Ahimsa, Satyam, Akrodaha, Tyaga, Shantir, Apaishunam, Daya Bhuteshu, Loluptam, towards everyone. Aloluptam, no covet, we'll come to that. Mardavam, Rihi, Achapalam, Tejaha, Shama, Dhriti, Shaucham, Adroho, Atimanita. These are the 25 qualities. And Bhagavan says that these are the possessions of the one who is born to divine nature. And he addresses Arjuna as Bharata. So the blessed Lord said, fearlessness, purity of the heart, steadfastness in yoga of knowledge, charity, control of senses, spirit of sacrifice, study of the scriptures, austerity, straightforwardness, harmlessness, truth, absence of anger, renunciation, serenity, non-slandering, compassion towards all beings, gentleness, modesty, absence of fickleness, vigor, forgiveness, fortitude, purity, absence of hatred, no overpride. These, O Bharata, are the possessions of the one who is born to divine nature. So we'll see the first 9 of the 25, only the first verse. It's already 5 o'clock. Abhayam, we're going to take some, okay, Abhayam, fearlessness. At the level of a sadhaka, the ability to do what is right for the spiritual path, for the progress in the spiritual path, and then sticking to it, not giving in, not mandating here and there, sticking to it. And at the level of the siddha, the accomplished, living in such a manner that no one is afraid of this person. No one is fearful of this person, fearsome of this person. See, everyone enjoys a degree of comfort in the presence of this person. That is at the level of a siddha. Bhagwan Rama is a beautiful example of, this Abhayam. Bhagwan Rama, when there is an objection, Sugriva raises an objection and Lakshmana supports Sugriva, says, why are you getting Vibhishana into our camp? That time Bhagwan Rama says, and it's beautiful, Valmiki Ramayana this is. He says, Sakhrideva prapannaya tavasmiti chayachate abhayam sarva bhutebhyah dadami etat vratam mama. So he says, one who seeks refuge in me, just once, just even once, saying that I am yours, I give the assurance of fearlessness to that person. And this is my vrata, this is my solemn pledge. So by following Bhagwan Rama's example, this siddha, assuring others of fearlessness. Sattva samshuddhihi, purity of the heart. The greatest purity. Here the heart, like I've said earlier, is not this physiological organ that beats, dhak, 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 not that. Heart is the very core, that very deep, the mind and the heart and the brain put together. Our deepest of our deepest cores, that core, the greatest purity of the core comes from following our Shastras. Bhagavan will say in this chapter also, okay, that we have to follow our Shastras. So the following abidance in the Shastras removes any disturbance and leads to purity within. And how does that come? That comes from removal of three aspects. The first one is abhavana. A lot of us have abhavana of being blissfully unaware of the import of the Shastras. Abhavana is removed by Shravana. Shravana means listening, just listening. Like I've been giving a monologue, listening. Thanks to you, all of you are listening. That is Shravana. Asambhavana is having doubts and clarifying those doubts. The clarification comes from Manana. Asambhavana is having doubts. Removal of doubts comes from Manana. Manana is questioning, even arguing, with whoever is teaching or whatever. That is Manana. And Viparita Bhavana, removal of Viparita Bhavana. Viparita Bhavana is habitual notion of taking an opposite stance. बहुत लोग करते हैं. तूने north बोला तो south. That is Viparita Bhavana. That is removed by dhyana or nididhyasana, meditation. When you contemplate, you know what is, for and what is against. So that goes through meditation. This is at the level of a sadhaka. At the level of a siddha, an accomplished person, one who makes no difference whatsoever between one's own welfare and welfare of the others. Who does not put self before the others, oneself before the others. Then the third one is jnana yoga vyavasthitihi, steadfastness in the yoga of knowledge. At the level of the sadhaka, jnana yoga avasthitihi. So jnana means ability to distinguish between the permanent and the ephemeral. What is permanent, what is nitya, and what is anitya, the ephemeral. Yoga is placing one's mind on that knowledge. So once you know what is permanent and what is ephemeral, placing the mind in that knowledge. Avasthiti, vyavasthiti is abiding in both the jnana and the yoga. At the level of a siddha, at the level of a siddha, jnana is crystal clarity, absolutely knowing that self within with crystal clear perfection. So that is jnana. Yoga is not only seeking the self, but also shunning what is the non-self. So once a person knows what the self is, the siddha shuns the non-self. And vyavasthiti is abiding in both jnana and yoga. Dhanam, charity. At the level of a sadhaka, charity is offering, giving something, giving away whatever you, by the way, giving away what you possess, what you want, not what you don't want. If I don't want this, I give it away. That is not charity. If I need something, this is something that I want, and I give it away. That is dana. So giving away something where I have the feeling of svatva. That svatva means I need it, it's mine. And once I give it away, it becomes paratva. After that, it is not sattva. After that, I don't need it. I fully let go of it, completely let go of it. That feeling of mine goes away completely. That is dhanam at the level of a sadhaka. At the level of a siddha, not even having an iota of svatva. That feeling of mine itself is not there. Nothing belongs to me. Not even having an iota of it. And even if someone gives something, it is, I accept it, that siddha, only for the purpose of God's work. That is at the level of a siddha. And also at the level of a siddha, because a siddha has knowledge, giving away knowledge. Freely giving away what you know. Damaha, control of the senses. While charity pertains to material aspects, Dhamma is the same spirit of letting go of one's own personal attachments. See, the sense organs naturally get attracted to sense objects. So if I like coffee, I naturally get attracted to coffee. If I like a beautiful flower, I naturally get attracted to a beautiful flower. If I'm a male, I naturally get attracted to a female. If I'm a female, I naturally get attracted to a male. Mostly, there are exceptions. What I mean is you get attracted to another human being. Let's put it that way. Okay. See, I remembered my daughter. If I say male, female, she'll blast me. You can get attracted to male also, male to male, right? So yes, okay, agreed. Thank you. But fundamentally, the sense organ getting attracted and attached to a sense object, very natural. It happens to everybody, right? Exercising discipline to restrain them. If I want that third glass of wine, I will say, no, I will not take it. I have the capacity, I will not take it. If I want the second, I will say no. Exercising discipline to control the sense organ from indulgence and sense objects is Dhamma. And not only does this Dhamma enable better focus, it conserves energy for higher pursuit. And at the level of the Siddha, an accomplished person, the same sense of control at an increasingly higher level, not undertaking any activity for the indulgence of the senses. Absolutely none. Everything that the Siddha does is only for God's work. That is all, not for pleasing one's own senses. Yajna, sacrifice. This sacrifice includes the following. Number one, indulging in religious ritual with the objective of inculcating discipline. Once the discipline is there, it's not necessary to indulge in rituals. But if the discipline is not there, rituals are extremely important to inculcate discipline. And that then leads to Dhamma and Dhanam also. Second thing, living life with the spirit of Yajna, Yajna spirit. Yajna spirit is the spirit of sacrifice in living. First, catering for others and then for your own self. First, think about the others. Stephen Covey says in communication, seek to understand, then to be understood. One of Stephen Covey is very famous. That is pertaining to communication. But pertaining to entire life, seek to give and then to receive. That is Yajna spirit. And the third aspect is following the 5 kinds of Yajna that Bhagavan has taught us. Number one, Deva Yajna, sacrifices that are made for the deities. We have innumerable deities. Okay. I'm now blanking out on the number and there's no time, so let me not try to remember. All elemental forces are conceived as devatas in Sanatana Dharma. And the concept of one universal power that is ever active in the world and receiving names as appropriate to its function. For example, Vayu, it will receive the name Vayu as appropriate to its function. Agni receives its name as appropriate to its function. So that one elemental power, based on its function, receiving these innumerable deity names. Yajna, for sacrifices for those deities. Pitru Yajna, sacrifices made for the ancestors. Fundamentally, this means acquiring and passing on tradition of our ancestry. See, we Indians are doing a very poor job of this today because everyone is too westernized. Okay, going back into our tradition, espousing our tradition, learning about our tradition, and then passing it on to the next generation is extremely, and this generation, I'm telling you, our generation is extremely crucial for this. Because unless we do it, the next generation will not even know so many things. So that is Pitru Yajna. Brahma Yajna or Rishi Yajna, sacrifices made for our vast scriptures, learning and spreading the ideas that are presented in our Vedas, Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, and so on and so forth. That is Brahma Yajna. So sacrificing other work to participate in Satsang. That is Brahma Yajna or Rishi Yajna. Manushya Yajna, sacrifices made for fellow human beings, duties towards our family, taking care of others, helping someone who has the need to be helped, helping others who are not so fortunate. Though that is Manushya Yajna. Socialism in governance is a form of Manushya Yajna. Whereas we are becoming more and more capitalist. Bhuta Yajna, sacrifices made for other creatures, all other creatures, letting them grow and prosper, not using them for our selfish desires. At the level of the Siddha, living a life dedicated to public good. See, the previous, all these yajnas that are 3 types of yajnas are all for the practitioner. The accomplished live an entire life for others, dedicated to others. A life of self-effacement, benefit to others, and glorifying God. Swadhyaya, that is the 7th one. Study of scriptures. For a sadhaka, every day, spending some time, devoting time on a daily basis for study of scriptures. Not just practice, study. So if you are doing Ashtanga Yoga, also study every day. Not just do Ashtanga Yoga every day. So whatever we do, we devote time to study of the scriptures. At the level of a Siddha, not only study, but also observe, analyze, and then apply it into one's own life. Observe, analyze, study, observe, analyze, apply. And when we do all of this, you realize the truth of the subject matter of study. Without doing all 4, we will not realize the truth of subject matter of study. Jigmini is a doctor. For her to practice being a doctor, study, observe, analyze, all of that is required. And then, practice that element of what has been read. Without that, you'll not be able to realize the truth of what has been studied. And also, at the level of a Siddha, to be able to impart that, whatever, share that knowledge. If you have a knowledge, share it. That is also Swadhyaya. Tapa, austerity at the level of a Sadhaka, and asceticism at the level of a Siddha. So austerity, exercising restraint, moderation. Like we talked about Dhamma, right? This is also a form of, Tapa is a higher form of Dhamma. Dhamma is control of the senses. Tapa is being austere in all aspects of life. Exercising restraint, moderation, and if required, also some hardship. That is also part of Tapa. And at the level of a Siddha, when we say asceticism, all conscious self-denial, everything, complete abstinence at the level of the body, mind, and intellect. Minimal indulgence in the material world. Minimal. Actually, even withdrawing from the material at the level of a Siddha. Arjavam, uprightness, straightforwardness. This is the opposite of crookedness. So at the Sadhaka level, actions that belie one's own intention. Andar kuch socha hai, bahar kuch kar raha hai. That is, motive is something else and action is something else. That is crookedness. Opposite of that is arjava, is uprightness. A crooked person has a split personality. That is not conducive to spiritual progress. And at the level of a Siddha, complete 100% alignment of the mind, word, and actions. Manasi ekam, vachasi ekam, karmani ekam. Sa mahatma, anyatha duratma. So 100% alignment. So we should all try to live the life of, as much as possible, what Bhagavan is teaching, the values that he's teaching. And we will continue the Daivaasura Sampad Vibhaaga Yoga, and we will see those in the next and the following satsangs. Thank you so much. Hari Om, Shri Krishna. Any thoughts or comments or questions? Welcome. It's 5:15, so I just wanted to see you here. We are all planning to go on a kind of a walk here. So just putting that in space, but please, any comments or thoughts or questions? Welcome. Otherwise, you can ask next time also. Balaji, you that we covered, right? Your question. Any other?
That question is still there.
Go ahead.
How does, say, you said that as per karma we get this birth. That is the karma fall. Now, if a particular animal is there, right, how will it go in the higher stage by step, how does it go?
So Balaji's question here is, how does, so when you make progress, so for example, an animal, how does that animal make progress to evolve, evolve body, mind, intellect wise, and also spirituality wise, whichever way. Exactly. Yeah. So that's why actually Bhagavan emphasizes on this term Manushya Loke, okay, the human embodiment. Whether it is, we say fortunately or unfortunately, whichever way it is, any other embodiment, animal, plant, stone, we have stone being, we have plant being, we have animal being, and we have human being. These are the 4 types of being. The stone being is the most inert, and it is the most devolved or less evolved body, mind, and intellect. Then comes the plant being. The plant being is rooted firmly in one place. It cannot move. It cannot walk. Okay, but in one place it can grow. And they say that it can express, it feels and all that, but it is very limited. Reasonably well evolved in body aspect, but very less evolved in mind and intellect aspect. The animal is much more, evolved. So we see that, and even plants, you have touch me nots, but in animal also, they are much more evolved from a mind and intellect perspective, right? But the human being is the most evolved. So it is said that the human being is the Manushya Loke, or the human embodiment is the one where Agami Karma can help influence through self-effort, through Purushartha. The other embodiments are meant only for Bhoga. By the way, even the devas, even the when we make a lot of punya and go to heavens, that is also bhoga. You can only enjoy the heavens. You cannot do anything to improve yourself, okay, or improve your spiritual journey. The quote unquote lower embodiments, I have to be very careful when using these terms. Quote unquote lower embodiments cannot do anything. They can only do bhoga. They have to exhaust their prarabdha. That is all. That is the life. Similarly, the devas who have achieved heaven, they also can only exhaust their punya. It is only the human being who can modify the papa or the punya through self-effort, through prayatna, through agami karma.
So if somebody, because of his karma, if he gets an animal body, then what happens to him? Just to exhaust that full the karma and then next, can it be human again or?
So the question is that if a human being, because of bad karma, gets animal body, or if is reborn as an animal, or it's all there in our scriptures, it is said so, right? Or why animal? Even reborn as a asura, or in the lower worlds, we have talked about, we have all read about the worlds and all that, right? In the lower worlds, then how does the person come back? So, like we said, that prarabdha results in the embodiment, that is the embodiment that we have in this janma is because of the matured karma. The matured karma is the prarabdha karma. So if the matured karma results in a lower embodiment, you have the lower embodiment. The matured karma results in human prarabdha, you have human prarabdha. If matured karma results in Daivi prarabdha or Devata prarabdha in the heavens, then you have that, right? In the heavens or in the lower forms, you have to only bhugatna hi padta hai. There is no other choice. But there is sanchita karma. The sanchita karma, if so, you have got that form, whichever form it is, to exhaust the prarabdha. But there is sanchita, especially for someone who has, by the way, it is the manushya loke where one can achieve moksha. You can't achieve moksha in heavens. You can't achieve moksha in the lower. It's only in the manushya loka. So you exhaust your prarabdha and you come back to manushya loka. So the animal comes back to manushya loka on exhaustion of prarabdha, not because of what the animal has done in that janma. That is not material. And then here, based on how the the agami is, then the future prarabdha and shape.
Here he gets the word as per his past prarabdha, whatever level.
Correct. Yeah. Any other thoughts or comments or questions?
One more thing I want to like is that harmlessness and those qualities. Don't you think that in that way, if it happens, Sanatana Dharma itself may face extinction?
Question is that all these qualities, the Daivi Sampad, the way the world is taking shape, Sanatana Dharma itself will face extinction. Bhagavan says that, no? He says that. Kali Yuga, yes. In fact, after Kali Yuga, you go back to Satya, right? So Bhagavan says that whenever the the dharma eradicates, and whenever it goes into complete devolution, where my creation, is getting destroyed, I come and I will not go into the verse and all that, but yeah, it's very, very, it's one of the most popular yada adhyayi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata. So Bhagavan says that when the degeneration happens to a level where it is pralaya happens, it happens.
What I'm saying in that case, now we have to keep quiet as that means. We have to be
no, we should not.
Not react or what are
the question is that if anyway pralaya is coming, should we just keep quiet? That's the question.
My comment is where all we are gathered here is what? We are trying to attain one step towards moksha. Let me put it that way. Am I right? Or why are you sitting here? Why you are doing profession? Trying to clear out the mess and get the clarity of what life is.
No, I am asking that we come out plain. There is so much of conversion taking place, forcibly or whatever way. So the numbers of Sanatana Dharmas are reducing. So we have to keep quiet because the pralaya is going to come. Or what do we do?
So this is like almost a political question. So almost. So can I?
As a human, what can you do?
Can we do or we
So
As a human,
or we should
no,
not associate with that?
so the question is, with so
So that
much of
becomes-
conversion taking place, is Sanatana Dharma going to get eradicated? Now, Bhagwan often.
Associate with the- from
No, I
that.
agree, because what he's trying to say is that if you,
I-
there are two things which you can do, either disassociate or associate. If you associate with it, then your Daiva Sampatti and your Asuri Sampatti will get messed up. Because when you associate, you will do things which you actually shouldn't be doing. But if you disassociate, then you might end up in the boka, you might be going in the right path, right? But then you fear the loss of the Sangha.
Yeah, it's a very good question. It's a very practical question. It's a very relevant question today. We have to go back to what Bhagavan repeated. Bhagavan repeatedly uses the word yaha. Yaha means whoever. Whoever does not have any barricade. Okay? There is no caste, there is no creed, there is no sex, there is no religion, there is no height, there is no weight, nothing. Whoever. Whether that person is a Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, Isai, whoever it may be. Okay? Whether that person is a male, female, whoever it may be. Whether that person is born in America, born fair, born tall, born, doesn't matter. Whoever it may be. If they follow these principles and values and practices and virtues, then Daivi, otherwise Asuri. And like I said, he lists out in so many chapters, chapter 2, chapter 12, 13, 14, 15. There are lists and lists of these virtues that Bhagavan repeatedly talks about. So whoever that, so yes, to your question, anyone can practice this. So humanity as such, the more we go towards, Sanatana Dharma is not Hinduism. Hinduism is, Sanatana Dharma can be practiced by anybody.
See,
So-
last में Dharma and the dog, yeah, both of them have this one approach. बाकी एला तिरुम्बी पाता go straight. So it is not, the dog also goes through. That's all. So pursuit is.
So my thing is that right now you are telling me to have these qualities. It may tomorrow there not be anybody to say that these are the qualities we should have. You're saying, okay, there is
When-
Hindu, Christian, whoever follows these, but then
Bhagavan says that when that stage comes, I myself will come. So he says, I myself, Dharma Samsthapanarthaya Sambhavami Yuge Yuge. In yuga after yuga after yuga, I will come and I will ensure that it is clear. Any thoughts or comments here on Zoom?
that's
Okay, thank you, Hari Om. We will meet next time. Thank God, Bhagavan, we were able to do the satsang without disruption. Hari Om. Thank you.